Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Let's continue the analysis of variant or ANOVA part 2. So in this part, we cover research questions for ANOVA. You might be wondering about the types of research questions appropriate for ANOVA. In other words, in what way can we construct good research questions for the analysis of variant? So I have come up with 3 research questions as samples for your reference. So the first one here, how do the firstborns, middleborns, and lastborns compare on the level of happiness? So in this study, I want to compare whether the oldest child or second, third, fourth, children, and the youngest one, the fifth child, significantly differ on the level of happiness. In my research, I conceptualize, children into 3 groups. The oldest is conceptualized as firstborn, second, third, something like that, conceptualized as middleborns, and the youngest in the family, the youngest son or daughter, is conceptualized as the lastborn. So you can see there is a question appropriate for ANOVA and look like this. Start with how do, okay, and then the first group, second group, and the third group compare on, and after that you just plug in the dependent variable. Okay, so that's one possibility. So next I want to ask a question. What is one independent variable here? Okay, if you have already watched the first movie on ANOVA in my channel, you already learn about how to detect dependent variables and independent variable in the research question appropriate for ANOVA. Okay, let's get to the answer. So the independent variable embedded or implied in or by this research question is the birth order. The birth order is divided into firstborn children, middleborn children, and the lastborn children. I hope you have consolidated or deepened your understanding of the variables implied by the research question. The second example you can see here. Are there differences among the 3 income groups on free time, level of happiness, and level of physical exercise? So this research question is again appropriate for ANOVA. It starts with, are there differences among? And then if you have 4 groups or 3 groups, you just say the 3 income groups or the 4 income groups. And we have to have preposition on. And after the preposition on, we have dependent variable if you have more than 1 dependent variable. So we are good to go. You see 2 possibilities of formulating research questions for ANOVA. So again, the question is, what is one independent variable in this research question? So this is the answer for you. Income is the independent variable. Income has 3 layers. I conceptualize 3 layers in this study, in my study. One is low income group, middle income group, and high income group. So let's move to the last example. Do grade 10, 11, and 12 students in one public high school significantly differ on the amount of pleasure reading. So again, the same question, grade is the independent variable, and grade is divided into 3 levels, 10, 11, and 12. And we want to compare the 3 groups of students on the amount of time they devote to pleasure reading. So that's all for research questions for ANOVA. Let us move to SPSS. How do we, produced ANOVA outputs in SPSS? Before we go to that, let's go to one key concept to take away also, in addition to the key concepts in the previous movie. Anova is robust. Okay, Anova is an inferential statistic that is robust. What does it mean? It simply means if you violate assumptions, for example, assumption number 2 and number 3, you may still use Anova. In retrospect, assumption number 2 says variances of the 3 groups have to be equal. That's assumption number 2. Assumption number 3 say the dependent variable of the 3 groups have to be normal. So we need to check assumption 1, assumption 2, and assumption 3 before we can go ahead with using ANOVA. The good news is ANOVA is a robust test. Even if, assumptions are not fully met, we may still use it. That's the good news. As long as we do not violate the assumption a lot, we can still use it. So in order to get ANOVA output in SPSS, we go through a number of steps. Step number 1, we go to analyze. Step 2, compare means, because we compare means, but this time we compare 3, 4, 5 means, not 2 means. If we have only 2 groups, we're gonna go to t-test. Step 3, we choose one-way ANOVA because there is only one factor or single factor or one independent variable in our research question. And we can move one dependent variable to the dependent list. Or if we have multiple dependent variables in our research, we can move all at once to the dependent list box. And step 5, we can move one. There is only one independent variable to the factors box. And don't click OK yet, ladies and gentlemen. Let's click options. Why do we click options? We click options because we want more options. So after we click options, we can choose under statistics. You choose, you tick descriptive and homogeneity of variance test. We want SPSS to produce descriptive statistics and variant tests. In this case, a test that tests the whether variances of all groups are equal. And under missing values, please choose exclude cases analysis by analysis, because we want to exclude any respondent who has missing data, for example. And finally, we can click continue and OK. So basically, there are 9 steps to go. Some steps are quite new. That's why we need to practice and practice, because practice makes perfect, because practice is the mother of skill. So let's go to the data, and I will walk you through the steps here. I have the real data again, the real data. So this is the score for a history for history classes. Okay, that and the participants belong to 3 cohorts. Those who graduated in 2018, 2019, and 2020. Okay, they attended the school in 2018, 2019, and 2020. And this is their final score on history subject. They are university students majoring in history. So let's go to SPSS. We go to analyze, compare means, and we choose one-way ANOVA. One-way ANOVA. And we can move history score because it is dependent variable. We move it here into dependent list box. We highlight cohort, the independent variable. We move it to factors box. Don't click OK yet, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna click options because we want more options. And we want SPSS to produce descriptive statistic. And we want SPSS to create a test that assesses the variances of the 3 groups. And we click on exclude cases analysis by analysis. I want to check means plot also, and click on continue. So here we tick 4 boxes, 4 options: descriptives, homogeneity of variance test, means plot, and exclude cases analysis by analysis before we click continue. And finally we click OK. So ladies and gentlemen, you can see we get what we asked for. This is descriptive statistic table. This is the table for a test of homogeneity of variances. This is the ANOVA table, and this is the means plots that we asked for. So in the next movie 3, I will come back to the outputs here, and we're gonna learn how to understand how to deconstruct them and how to deconstruct all the numbers here.